Get started. Welcome to the June 28th meeting of the Planning Board. First, we'll take a roll call vote to introduce board members. Kate, sorry if you just say here when I say your name. Kate?
Here.
Phil?
I'm here. Hi.
Josh?
Recording in progress.
Oh, and we're being recorded, it looks like. Ellen?
Here.
Okay, and I'm Chris Paff. I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. This meeting is recorded by Westwood Media Center and broadcast live on local cable television, Comcast Channel 12 and Verizon Channel 42. Meetings are also live on the Westwood Media Center's YouTube channel. If you're interested in joining the meeting via Zoom, you can find the login directions in the Planning Board meeting notice that's posted in the calendar section of the town's webpage at www.townhall.westwood.ma.us. We'll begin the meeting with only the board members and staff unmuted and on video. As the chair recognizes individuals to speak, we'll unmute them. Board members may choose to mute themselves when they're not speaking in order to minimize background noise. For applications, the chair will first invite the applicants to address the board and give a presentation summarizing what is being requested. Board members receive the application materials prior to the meeting and will have reviewed them. Board members may ask questions during and following the presentation. Staff and outside experts will provide comments to the board. If the issue includes a public hearing, the board will then proceed to public comment portion of the public hearing and will restate the instructions. In this remote meeting format, residents and guests may participate in several ways. Attendees should raise their hand and wait to be unmuted and recognized to speak over the Zoom meeting application or from a telephone dial-up. We will be able to hear you but not see you. Additionally, comments may be submitted by email or regular mail prior to the meeting. When we come to that part of the meeting, I will remind everyone of the process. Following the public comment portion, the board will deliberate and make a decision or continue the hearing to a specific future date. All remote meetings require the votes be taken by roll call. When a motion and a second has been made, the chair will ask if there's any further discussion before proceeding to a roll call vote, and will then restate the results of the vote. John, do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, we do not.
Okay, so first on our list, first of all, I'd like to welcome you for your first full meeting as our new town planner. And let's see, well, first I see is 20 Wildwood Drive.
Actually, the first agenda item, Chris, is the continuation.
Sorry, go ahead. That's what I have in my agenda item. Sorry, is number one. Is this an old agenda? Am I working off of?
I don't think so. I don't think it's changed very much.
Okay.
I don't think I think the order was always this way. But yeah, the first item is the continuation of the public hearing for the Eidr for the proposed gas station / convenience store redevelopment for 394 and 396 Providence Highway, continued from June 7th.
Okay, that actually does not appear in my agenda. So I knew it was a continuation, but so maybe I'll just defer to you for future agenda items tonight. So give us a brief rundown of where we stand and what we're doing.
Sure. So the initial fee for the requested peer review by Beta was received on June 21st, and a contract is now awaiting signature. Once the contract is fully executed, Beta will begin its review of the application submitted plans. I do believe that contract has been endorsed and executed, so Beta is going to be beginning his peer review. Phil Parity will be beginning his peer review here as we speak. And I'm trying to schedule a meeting with Phil and also the engineer from the Colbea team to give a few of my comments. I'm hoping to schedule that for later this week. And then Phil can put his comments together. So due to the delay in receipt of the 53G funds, Beta won't be able to provide its review memo in time for consideration tonight. So the recommendation is that the board vote to continue the public hearing without testimony to the meeting on July 12, 2022. Without testimony.
So both parties are good with the 12th? Obviously, Beta's got to do the work, but
right.
Colbea's fine with it. Okay. Okay. So we have a continuance till our July 12th meeting at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Anyone like to make a motion to continue this hearing until that date?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Looks like Chris froze.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, there you go.
We can now.
Don't know what happened. I apologize. First voting is Ellen.
Sorry, Chris. I see someone had their hand raised in the attendee. Oh, it looks like there's some, before we vote, I don't know whether or not we want to.
I don't see anything.
Yeah, I see a Jared Levin with his hand raised.
My apologies. Jarrett Levin. Oh, he just disappeared from my screen. Nope.
Oh, his hand's
so the
down
hand
now.
the hand disappeared.
Yeah.
There it is.
Oh,
Okay.
it's back up. All right.
You had second thoughts, I guess.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
I'm going to allow him to speak, Chris.
Yeah, his hand is back up. Sure.
Hi, sorry, I'm a few minutes late. Did you say you're continuing the meeting?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so the item on the board regarding 20 Wildwood is for will now be in the next meeting.
No, we're hearing this about the Shell station on Providence Highway.
Okay, so
we haven't discussed 20 Wildwood yet.
Thank you. It was just, I thought it was the whole meeting you were continuing. I didn't realize it was just the first item.
No, just item by item.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay. So we'll do a roll call vote to continue this to the motion date of July 12th. Ellen?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
And Kate?
Aye.
And I vote aye also. So that will move on. John, next item.
Next item is a continuation of the public hearing for Earth Material Movement EIDR review, approval for 122 Wilsondale Street. The board granted an approval on this project at the June 7th meeting, conditional upon the applicant's receipt of an administrative land disturbance approval from the conservation agent, Karen Skinner-Catrone. And although the board's approval has been issued, the board decided to keep the hearing open in case Karen and Phil's comments necessitated changes to the plan that would have the applicant come back before the planning board. At this point, Karen and Phil have yet to receive the requested information from the applicant. Therefore, they have not been able to consider that or issue that approval at this point. So it is recommended that the board continue this hearing to July 12, 2022 at 7 p.m. to allow Karen and Phil to receive all the required materials so they can review that project for their administrative land disturbance approval.
Okay. So we need a motion to continue this to our July 12th meeting at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Josh?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
And I vote aye also. So we'll hear that in a couple of weeks. John, next item?
Sure. So now we get to the public hearing you referenced before, Chris.
Oh, all right.
So this is the public hearing for the opening of the public hearing for amendment of earth removal movement, environmental impact and design review for 20 Wildwood Drive.
Okay, is the applicant here? Do we have anyone from the applicant?
I see Mr. Chen present. Let me allow him to speak.
Hello, this is Litao Chen. Yeah, I'm the applicant
Hello.
of this item. Yeah,
Good evening, sir.
good evening. So, shall I start?
Absolutely, if you're ready.
Do I need to share screen, or I don't see how I can share?
John, unless you have his materials you could share.
If I can, let me see if I can pull that up. Hold on, let me open this up. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, Mr. Chen, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Can you zoom into the plan on the left a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm requesting a minor change to the previous plan.
Okay, let me zoom in a little bit more for you.
Mhm. The first plan was approved in February, I think, and we are making some minor changes. The first change is like the elevation 126. Previously, we planned a retaining wall. And later on, we feel like this looks a little bit ugly. So we want to change that retaining wall to a slope. So basically, you're going to have a gentle slope from 124 to 128. And that's one change. And the other change is that on the left side, you see a stair over there, existing stair, and there's a retaining wall beside the stair. I want to get rid of that retaining wall and extend the retaining wall on the top to the left. Yeah, so these two changes we are requesting. And as a result, in terms of the earth material move, and the volume change is like a cut will change from 675 to 700. It's 25-yard increase. The fill gonna stay the same as 325. The net volume gonna change from 350 to 375. And the loam to be imported stays the same as around 160 yard, since the wall to slope change is the wash on cut and fill. Yeah, this is the change. This is the change we are requesting for the amendment.
All right, thank you. John, is anyone here from Beta to summarize their comments, or can you do that for us?
No, but I do have their comments that were in the packet. Let me just grab those. So dated June 24th, 2022. Based on review of these changes, Beta does not see them resulting in a measurable increase in negative impacts to the subject or abutting properties, and therefore finds the changes acceptable. And the other aspect of this project, Chris, is that the applicant is seeking a waiver from the application fees. So in the meeting summary, he's requesting a complete waiver of the fees. But I believe that there's a recommendation that he receive a partial refund or a partial reduction in his fees.
And what department assesses those fees or receives those fees?
They go to the general fund. All fees that are paid on any application are just submitted to the general fund. So they go directly to all services of the town. In this case, we had the Department of Public Works have Beta review this plan as consulting town engineer at a cost to the Department of Public Works. So our recommendation is for a partial waiver of fees, not a complete waiver.
And is that up to the planning board to determine what partial, what percent?
It is.
I don't recall having this request to a partial.
You haven't had this request before. Generally, when there's a modification proposal, the modification fee is paid. In this case, the applicant requested you consider a waiver of the fees, and staff reviewed that and recommends that you consider a waiver, but not a full waiver, because there are some expenses that are incurred in staff and consultants' review of the plans.
Just for full edification, can you share with us what a full fee would be on this?
And what the partial would be?
$750 is the application fee. I believe, let me just double check that.
Yes, that's correct.
$750. And so we're recommending that you waive $500 of the $750 fee.
So it becomes a $250 fee.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's completely at the board's discretion.
All right. And the planning department feels that would still be adequate for us for our expenses. Obviously you recommended that, so I'm going to assume that.
So the Department of Public Works hires Beta as its consulting engineer on a project by project basis, and they pay fees. I can't tell you that the $250 is exactly what Beta's expenses are. In fact, they're likely more than that, but they're on staff to replace the town engineer.
Right.
Anyhow, so there is some expense that DPW is expecting to pay to Beta, but I believe this additional review should be compensated in some amount, and I think $250 is a reasonable fee. for the amount of work that went into this application.
Okay. So would we need a separate motion for this fee waiver request, or just in general for the changes? For the total plan?
I'd recommend two motions, one for a fee waiver and one for the application. And
Okay.
I can give you language that I'd recommend. But I think I see Kate's hand up, so I don't know if you.
Okay. Yeah, I
wanna
can only
board
see three
discussion
other
first?
people. So yeah, I was going to get to that. I just wanted to clarify what everything that was on the table. Kate, did you have a question or something to add?
I did. I just wanted to understand for this project, what fees have been paid by Mr. Chen thus far? Or, you know,
So far, nothing has been paid, basically zero.
For the original application, the original
my
earth
question.
material movement application, there was a $750 fee. So Mr. Chen would have paid that with the original application. And then this is a modification of that original application. Requires a new review of the plans, but not as extensive as the original review.
thank you. That's what I need to know. Thank you.
John, if everyone's okay, if you stop sharing the screen, I can see everyone's camera, and then I can see people waving, raising their hand if they have questions. So unless people want to see other aspects of the plan, I think we've seen it before. And
Okay.
Any other comments or questions from board members? Ellen?
Yeah, I'm curious. Do we know what the difference is in the grade that would have been created by the retaining wall as opposed to what would be created by a gentle slope? I didn't do the math from the plans. I mean, obviously there's a change, but and Beta's comments just said there was no negligible impact, but I'm curious, you know, as far as stormwater goes, because I know that was a concern for the neighbors before when we talked about this, and that the plan that we approved had been determined by Beta that it would actually improve the stormwater runoff. So I'm just curious what the impact of changing a retaining wall, which is, you know, kind of upright to a grade, you know, how steep a grade is that going to be?
So I can tell you that the overall grade change, the change from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill is the same, but it's just a gradual slope as opposed to a steeper slope and a wall. But perhaps the applicant can give you more specifics. I think if you looked at the proposed plan, I think you also have your approved plan. If you want to show those side by side, that might be a good way of answering that question.
I can give a quick answer. So basically the elevation doesn't change. It's still like 128 at the top. And the only change is like we change the retaining wall to a slope, and the slope will be roughly 1-to-3 ratio. And that slope is towarding our house, not to our neighbors. So I don't think there will be any negative impact to the neighbors in terms of the stormwater.
That's helpful. Thank you.
I had a question. You guys, it looks like you guys went in front of the Conservation Commission just at the beginning of the month as well. Was there any specific feedback from them?
Yeah, we went through that and we got approved from the discussion. And there's no question answered raised.
Okay.
Because all the changes are outside the 100 feet buffer line, basically.
Josh, I can verify that. I spoke to Karen today and she verified that they approved that project.
Great.
All right, any other comments or questions from board members? Okay, Nora, you said you had, or we go to public comments.
I can share my screen now and show you.
Should I go to public? This is a hearing, right?
Yes.
So we need to give the public opportunity before we make motions to ask questions or make comments. So I don't see any hands raised yet, but I'll give them a 20-30 seconds. All right, well, I don't see anybody, so.
Okay, so let me.
Sorry, a hand just went up.
Of course it did.
11.
Can I see that? Yes, no, I don't see a hand raised in the
Lowered it.
attendees.
He raised it again.
Okay. John, can you allow him to,
Who's raising their hand, Chris?
Jared
Jared.
Levin?
What's that?
The Jared Levin, the gentleman who actually spoke at the beginning.
I'm trying to find him on my list of attendees. I'm having a tough time finding him.
I can take care of that if you would like. I can allow them to speak.
Sure.
Oh, there we
thank
go.
you,
I got
Connor.
him. I got him. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, I keep lowering it because I feel like you had noticed it, and then sorry for the premature lowering of hands. Where are the additional trees being removed? Because it says part of it is the change that there are 5 more trees.
I don't
I
believe
heard a
it's,
lot of conversation about the slope, but I didn't hear where the extra trees are.
I don't believe it's 5 more trees. I think it's the 5 trees that were originally proposed for removal.
Oh, so that's not a change.
That is not a change.
Oh, okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Chen?
Yeah, that's correct. We didn't change anything about trees.
Okay, great. Sorry, maybe it was just reiterating some of the notice may have been reiterating the original and not just the change. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, neighbor Lee Tao. I hope it goes well. I'll see you around pretty soon. We should be moving back in a week or so from our project. So good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, so Nora is sharing some
Yes.
language.
Yes, so here's a proposed, I have 2 motions that are proposed here. One is for a proposed partial fee waiver, and the second is a proposed motion to approve the amended earth material movement environmental impact design review.
Okay. Is there anyone who'd like to make a motion for the fee waiver?
Can I just ask, Nora, how typical is it for a fee waiver? Not familiar with it.
It's not typical at all. Fee waivers are unusual, but
Yep.
this is a little bit of an unusual application. It was extensively reviewed a few months back. And then this change that came about is not significant change, but a change that requires the planning board approval. So it's not unusual. If this application had been filed as a modification application, there would have been a lesser fee. In that case, I believe the fee would have actually been $100. But the way that it was filed as a formal amendment, which I think was necessary to get the peer review report in this case.
I guess my question on the fee is whether the original fee together with this waiver covers, because it struck me that it doesn't cover the costs very well. And I just want to make sure that that seemingly is accurate.
So I believe the original application fee of $750 did cover the town's cost in reviewing the original application.
Okay.
The revised application required far less review, but it did still require review. I estimate it to be about 1/3 of the time that would have been spent reviewing the original application, which is why I would recommend a reduced fee of $250.
Okay.
I'll move that the planning board grant a partial fee waiver for the earth material movement, environmental impact and design review application for 20 Wildwood Drive filed by Lee Tao Chen and recorded in the office of the town clerk on June 2nd, 2022 to reduce the $750 application fee to $250 and require payment of the $250 application fee on or before July 7th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So we'll do a roll call vote. Ellen,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
and I vote aye also. So let's move on to the approval of the earth material movement. If anyone would care to read that motion language.
I move that the planning board grant approval of the amended earth material movement environmental impact and design review application for 20 Wildwood Drive filed by Lee Tao Chen and recorded in the office of the town clerk on June 2nd, 2022, with the same conditions imposed in the December 14th, 2021 EMM-EIDR approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Ellen,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Excellent.
Okay. Nora, we need to close this hearing. Are
Yes,
we
you
ready
do.
for that? Okay. Take a motion to close the hearing, the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. Josh,
Aye.
Phil,
Yep. Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
and I vote aye also. So the hearing is closed. Good luck, Mr. Chen. Hope it
Thank
goes
you.
smoothly
Thank you,
for you.
everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, John, what's next?
Next, we have a public hearing for a proposed rescission of approval of a definitive subdivision plan titled 2-Lot Definitive Subdivision, 215 High Street, Westwood, Mass, dated June 19, 2003, and revised through December 7, 2006, which plan was conditionally approved by the Westwood Planning Board on October 14, 2003, modified and final approval granted on December 19, 2006. So just to give a brief background and how this got here. The meeting packet you received contains an application for rescission of approval of that definitive subdivision involving the property known as 205 to 215 High Street. The applicant is Meneza Rivera Bujosa, the attorney for the prospective purchasers of the property. She's requesting a rescission of the previously approved 2-lot definitive subdivision pursuant to MGL Chapter 41, Section 81W, known as the Subdivision Control Law. So the subdivision plan was approved in 2003 and endorsed in 2006. At that time, the property owners desired the ability to create 2 distinct residential properties, one of which containing the principal residential structure and one containing a 19th century cottage, which had been acquired from an adjacent property owner. The 2003 approval decision imposed several conditions, including a condition that the cottage now be removed and replaced, not be removed and replaced for a period of 5 years from the date on which the definitive subdivision plan was recorded at the Registry of Deeds. The plan was never recorded, so the 5-year prohibition has yet to be effectuated. The property owners have recently agreed to sell the property to the applicant's clients. The applicant's clients do not wish to create 2 separate residential properties as previously approved. Rather, they intend to maintain the property for exempt agricultural uses, including the boarding of horses and operation of an equestrian facility, and use the cottage as a caretaker's quarters. As such, the 2003-2006 subdivision is no longer needed or desired. Current property owners and their mortgage holder have no objection to the requested rescission, and it will not have any impact on other aspects of the property. And Beta has commented that they have no issue with the rescission because no activities actually happened from the subdivision approval. No constructions happened. The property has remained the same.
Okay, thank you for that summary. Any other comments from town staff, planning department, anything? Sorry, did I go on mute or?
No, you didn't.
I have, no,
I
I
don't know
have
what
nothing to add.
My life just
think
stopped
that-
there for a second.
I think John covered it.
Okay. Nora, any other color to add for us?
No, just that this was a very old subdivision. This property has been back before the board on multiple occasions. Over the last 14 years, I believe I've worked with either 4 or 5 different prospective purchasers of the lot. All of them were made aware that the subdivision was approved and not filed, and it was something that had to be addressed moving forward. So the current prospective purchasers of the property do not want to continue with the subdivision. They would like to go back to having a single lot. And for the exempt agricultural use, they are permitted to use the non-conforming residential structure as a not guest quarters, a caretaker's quarters. So it doesn't need to be its own independent residential unit, so it doesn't need a second lot. I think it's appropriate to rescind the subdivision.
Okay, Mr. Ahern, do you have anything to add from our legal department?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Just
All
a
right,
quick
any-
question. Can I
Yeah,
ask
sorry.
a question? John, did you say there was a lack of recordation of it back in 2003 or whenever it was?
Correct, I believe so, Nora, that the approved subdivision was never recorded.
Right, so the definitive subdivision approval was granted in 2003. There's often a lag between the approval decision and the endorsement of the plan. It wasn't until 2006 that the Flanagans requested endorsement of the plan. That plan was endorsed, but they failed to record it. It was a conscious choice not to record it. It wasn't an accident. They decided not to record it. Because the subdivision plan was never recorded at the registry, that non-conforming residential unit was an illegal unit. And it would not have been available for legal residential occupancy unless and until the subdivision plan was recorded. That subdivision plan, though, contained a prohibition on demolition of the structure for a period of 5 years. And I think that, that may have been the reason why they chose not to record it. But it remains effective, recorded or not, remains effective unless it's rescinded.
But by not recording it, they had an illegal structure. Am I correct on that?
If they occupied it, so I don't know what they did. The structure itself was not illegal. Its use as a residential structure would have been illegal. So if they had someone living in that structure, that would have been an illegal occupancy.
Okay.
So the prospective owners wish to use it as a caretaker's cottage, which is allowed on an exempt agricultural facility. And so they do not need to have the subdivision. And in fact, if they were to record this subdivision now, there would be a 5-year prohibition on the demolition of that structure.
And that time would start now, correct?
It would start on the date of recording.
Of recordation. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Okay, any other comments or questions by board members for our staff?
Just a comment, it's truly editorial, but I just wanted to say I'm actually really happy to see that the prospective buyer wants to continue with the agricultural uses, particularly the equestrian aspect there. I think it would be sad, it would be a nice asset to the town, easily available to have, of course not. So I'm happy that it sounds that use will continue rather than the lot be subdivided and become.
The applicant is in the attendees. Would you like to make the applicant a participant, and then you'd be able to ask any questions or receive any comments from the applicant?
Yeah, board members, do you have any questions for the applicant directly?
I actually would like to hear more about their agricultural use of the property.
Okay, I'll allow the attorney to speak.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
My apologies for my voice is a little weak, but I wanted to first thank the board for your time today. We request the rescission of the approval for purposes of allowing occupancy as a caretakers of 205 High Street. That dwelling is right next to the barn and the training area where the present equine use, care, training is now being held, and what it is also necessary for that home to be able to be used in order for that equine use, training, and farming purpose to continue. It's because of the location of the 205 High Street dwelling to the barn. At the property, the rescission of the subdivision is just necessary to further that purpose and for my clients to purchase and do so. I don't know if that answers your question. I think the town very well presented the reason for our application today and why we need your approval to rescind that subdivision for that 205 High Street dwelling to continue to be used as a caretaker's quarters for care of the horses, which is necessary 24 hours all the time. So for that reason, we request your allowance. We also made a request for a fee waiver because we are requesting rescission of the subdivision and not an application for a new one. I don't know if the board has any further questions, but I'm here to answer them, as well as my client is here present today by Zoom.
Thank you. Josh, did that answer your question?
You're
You're
muted,
muted,
Josh.
Thank you. I actually wanted to hear more about the specific agricultural use that you guys intend. So I noticed that you guys just filed an LLC for Equine Ventures. I'm assuming that's part of this move. Do they have other agricultural uses with other properties, or I'm just trying to understand the usage of the property?
The use for the property is for the care, training of horses, as well as use of farm goods that equine training could involve. And that prop LLC was made for the purpose of continuing that present equine use and in a new, improved, beautiful space. That is the plan. My client calls it, if you will, the Disney of horses, in the sense of for riding, for raising of horses, care of horses, the boarding of horses. That's would be the purpose of the property, and why we need 205 to be able to be used for that purpose, because of its location to the barn, the area where the horses are ridden, the area where the horses are cared for, washed, trained, and that care is all the time. And 205 High Street is right adjacent or right next to that area, versus the main home is separated in a way from that area. So that's why it's so necessary. I hope I'm answering your question.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
not exactly. I'm just more wanting to understand your clients. Like, are they licensed equine dealer transporters? You know, do they have riding license? Like, I'm just trying to actually understand the usage of the property, because I understand what it's currently used as, but I want to make sure it's going to be continued to be used. In addition, if I'm not mistaken, they also have to submit something to the town assessor for an exempt agricultural use. Is that correct?
Yes, and that has been done and approved for the new buyers some time ago. Absolutely. Regarding the licensing, that has been, they retained counsel who are a specialist in the equine industry and licensing provision. And that is in furtherance of that intent. However, we need this step to occur for us to further those goals of, of the training, the boarding, and the care of the horses, as well as potentially use of some of the goods that result from this, like manure, things like that, right? There could be some sales and agricultural pursuits in that aspect. But we need this step because of the location of 205 High Street to the area made for walking the horses, for carrying the horses, for washing the horses, for training them, for having children ride on them, for having families board the horses therein. And that structure is necessary because care of the equine is 24 hours all the time. But in furtherance of town planner Josh is asking, yes, that is those efforts have started. We need this step to continue that, to finalize the licensing and the transfer of hopefully title for 215 and 205 High Street to continue the horses farm.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant from the board?
I do just have one question. I'm just curious, the residents, I understand the need. I understand what you're asking us for. I'm just curious, the residence that is there, the legal residence that is there, that a person can live in right now, will people be living in it?
At which one? 215. Yes, the plan is for my clients to move in to 215 High Street. Yes, 205 High Street. They have started the retaining of staff for the care of the horses. However, necessary step was necessary.
Understood.
But the goal is, my client actually is a horse, has a long history with horses. She actually cares for the horses and has cared for the horses throughout this process before approaching to you today. And but so she is also a caretaker, but the long-term goal is for them to move into 215 High Street and have their staff to live there at 205 High Street for purposes of maintaining and caring for those horses. They would be part of and employees and staff of that LLC, Equine Ventures, created for that purpose. Thank you.
Okay, any other board members with a comment or question for the applicant? Okay. John, next is a motion to rescind. Is that, do we have language for that or anything ready for us to read?
Sorry.
Or just make a motion?
Sorry, Chris, I just thought of a question.
Oh, sorry, Ellen, didn't see it.
Sorry, no, that's okay. That's why I'm interjecting. Ms. Rivera mentioned something about they're asking for a fee waiver. Are they asking that of us? Because I didn't see anything in our prep materials and in the application plan noting that. So is that something we deal with, or is that a different entity that would handle that?
Yes, they're asking for the fee waiver, and you would be the board that would consider it. So a subdivision application has a substantial fee. In this case, there's a $3,750 fee for the application. I think it's $2,000 for the application, plus an additional sum for each lot, plus $3 per linear foot for the site drive that would come into those lots. In any event, it totaled $3,750. A subdivision application also requires a $2,000 inspection fee. Now, those fees are intended for the review and inspection of new subdivisions where new roads are created, and the engineers have to get out there and look at them. In this case, the applicant paid an initial $2,500 just to file the application. Those funds have not been used and are not needed if the board grants this rescission. And in this case, there was not even any true review by Beta on behalf of DPW. They simply looked at it and said, well, if you're not going forward with the subdivision, there's nothing for us to review. So I would recommend that the board consider granting the fee waiver and not only waive the application fee and the inspection fee, but allow the applicant to receive a return of the funds that were already paid in association with this application. The only cost of this application was the advertisement, and that was fully paid by the applicant. So I can put up share my screen to show a fee waiver motion that I'm recommending here.
So Nora, just to be clear, the fees you're talking about, the 3,700 and the 2,000, that's not what was paid back in 2003. That's what's paid.
No, that's correct. So when the applicant applied in 2003 and then amended it in 2006, they would have paid whatever application fees were required at that time, whatever inspection fees were required at that time. So the current subdivision regulations require the payment of these fees in order for an application to go forward. It doesn't matter if it's a modification, a rescission, or a brand new subdivision. The fees are the same unless the board chooses to waive them.
Ms. Rivera, you represent the buyers on a purchase and sale for this property, is that correct?
Yes.
And I assume that the P&S agreement has, as a condition of closing, would be that the approval of the planning board would be required. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I guess I'm just concerned about the kind of, we should probably have either a process or something for fee waivers. I understand it, and it's actually a good application, and I like the application and the continuation of the use. But I just am concerned that we just go through the fee waiver process on an ad hoc basis as compared to having a measuring stick as to when they should be and when they shouldn't be applied.
So
Well,
the town is prohibited from collecting fees, whether it's for a permitting application that goes before the planning board or the zoning board, or a building permit application, if those fees are far in excess of the town's actual costs in the application. In this case, the town simply has no cost. And so I am very uncomfortable accepting $2,500 from the applicant for the board's review of this application.
So I think going forward, it sounds like, Phil, you'd like to explore
Yeah, I just
scenario.
some kind of, whether there is a waiver, certainly for, economic reasons, for because sometimes I assume that the town's costs are, differing as compared to what the fees collected may be. So I mean, I'm not adverse to a fee waiver. I certainly am not adverse to this one. I guess my suggestion would be that we kind of approach it in a more typical kind of fashion, that if people are going to apply for a fee waiver, we have some measuring stick, because I'm not sure, I don't know if it's a rabbit hole to go down into the P&S and say, well, if this property is being sold for X, that's not necessarily that's a 1% cost of X. But I'm not adverse to it, because obviously there's not a necessity in this case where we didn't incur the costs. I just think that there should be some kind of connection between what the town waiver policy should be and where there are costs and what the circumstances are.
So I'd
Nora.
recommend that the board, when you review your rules and regulations for updates, you look at the fees associated with those, and perhaps have a separate rescission fee instead of the standard subdivision fee that would apply in all cases. That would be one way to address something like this. You could also establish another set of rules and regulations with requirements for consideration of fee waivers, but you don't have that right now. So right now you're acting just under the rules and regulations you have, where this is not addressed.
You could also establish criteria for fee waivers, Phil.
Yeah, that's, like I say, I'm not adverse to this, but if I just think of it, I have no idea what the, and it's like I say, it's a rabbit hole to go down into what the cost of this is in terms of the application, in terms of what the transaction is going to be. I'm not adverse to it. It's just a suggestion for going forward. But I said my piece, that's all.
Nora, I don't know if you can, I've been on the board 10 years. I've never seen something like this, rescinding a subdivision. So I'm not sure if drafting language to alter our rules and regulations is all that necessary. It seems like it happens so infrequently that we can deal with it on a case-by-case basis.
I think this is the first rescission in 15 years.
Okay. But anyway, I would prefer let's talk about this particular situation with the rules we have in place. And I'm fully happy to explore making this a streamlined process moving forward over our summer months. Maybe we can have discussions about it. But this to me seems reasonable by the town and a reasonable request by the applicant. So as a board member, to me, it seems reasonable. So if there's anybody here that would like to make the motion for the fee waiver.
Did we open it up to public already?
Yes.
Oh,
no,
my
you did not.
apologies.
It's a public hearing.
You're right. I can't see as because the screen share, so things don't appear on my screen quite
Let
as
me
easily.
take that down.
No, we need the verbiage. Now I can see it.
I'll put it back up if you don't have any comments.
Okay. It's just when the screen sharing is there, it doesn't show immediately to me. I have to go click a button to see it.
There are no questions and answers.
Don't see any.
in the queue.
Yeah, I don't see
No
any.
hands raised.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that the planning board grant rescission of approval of the definitive subdivision titled 2-lot definitive subdivision 215 High Street, Westwood, Mass, dated June 19th, 2003, and revised through December 7th, 2006, which plan was conditionally approved by the Westwood Planning Board on October 4th, 2003, modified and final approval granted on December 19th, 2006, pursuant to MGL Chapter 41, Section 81W, requested by Mernesa Rivera Bujosa and recorded in the office of the town clerk on June 14th, 2022.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Ellen,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
I vote aye. So now we have the fee waiver motion, if there's anyone like to make that.
I
I
move
move
that.
that. Go for it, Josh.
Josh, I think you're up.
All right, I move that the planning board grant a fee waiver for the definitive subdivision application filed pursuant to MGL Chapter 41, Section 81W by Mernesa Rivera Bujosa and recorded in the office of the town clerk on June 14th, 2022, to waive the application fee of $3,750 and also to waive the $2,000 inspection fee and to allow a refund of the $2,500 partial fee payment that was paid by the applicant at the time of filing.
I'm going to second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Ellen,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
And then you'll need
Okay.
a motion to close the public. hearing.
Right. Just looking for
Motion to
any
close
last,
Sorry.
no, I was just looking for one last hand that might have been raised just before we closed it. So, okay, I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Josh,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
I vote aye. So this hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank
To the
you, thank you,
applicants.
thank you. Thank you very
Good
much.
luck.
and Have a great day.
Good luck.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, John, what's next?
Well, we have that's it for the hearings. We have a pre-application discussion regarding proposed mixed-use development at 436 Washington Street. And if you'd like, Chris, I could, Attorney Zaka is on the line. I could open it up for him to give a presentation to the board on this.
Yes, please.
You'll need to make Peter a panelist, and if you could also make Mike McKay a panelist.
Sure. Okay. I think they're here. There we go.
Good evening. For the
Hello.
record, I'm Zucker, attorney with offices on School Street in Dedham, here on behalf of Stephen David, who's the trustee of 436 Washington Street Realty Trust. And if he bends his head over, you'll see that Mr. David is sitting next to me. So he's also present. And also, as mentioned, the architect, Mike McKay. Geez, Mike, I'm just looking at your screenshot. I thought you had curly hair all of a sudden. There must be something behind you. I'm sorry. There you go. So we're here tonight on a pre-application filing relative to the property at 436 Washington Street. Let the board know that we did meet with your land use committee, I believe is what you referred to it as. I think it was back on June 1st to likewise review the project. As indicated, the property, I'm going to do a quick overview and then turn it over to Mike McKay, if I may. The project, as I say, is the property is at 436 Washington Street. And it contains approximately 13,655 square feet of land, has 135 feet of frontage, currently occupied by a one-story commercial building with a floor area of about 3,200 square feet. If you're old enough, you may remember that that building once was occupied by a printing shop, but I believe it's been vacant for well over a decade. Clearly a underutilized site. It's located in the local business B zoning district, and it's also located in your flexible multiple use overlay district 6. So the applicant is proposing, in a nutshell, to renovate the first floor, add a new second floor, The two-story building then will have basically double the floor area now, go to about 6,550 square feet. First floor will contain more than likely a professional service establishment. We're trying to kick Mr. David out of Dedham, so he may move his office over to Westwood in that site. But more than likely, it'll be some kind of office use on the first floor. The second floor is proposed would be 5 studio apartments. And it is applicant's intent that all 5 studio apartments be so-called affordable apartments through the local initiative program, LIP. As you'll see in a second, the project will be served by 18 parking spaces, standard 12 and standard 9 by 18 size. I believe there are 6 compact spaces. Last I saw the plan, the aisle widths were 24 feet. In the project narrative I submitted, I won't do this now, but we can do it later if you desire, but basically shown that the uses are basically allowed in the FMLUD 6. And I believe the only waiver request is that you have a minimum project area of 43,560. And as indicated, we have a little shy of 14,000. Otherwise, we believe that the project as proposed does satisfy the zoning bylaw requirements, including the number of parking spaces. That's my brief overview. With your permission, I'd like Mike either to share his screen, if that's possible. Mike, you want to share your screen, or?
Yes, if I can.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Absolutely, please. Thanks.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peter. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Michael McKay. I'm the project architect, offices 35 Bryant Street in Dedham. First few images are just Google Street View photos of the site. As you can see, the train line is right in the back of this this building. The existing footprint, as Peter mentioned, we plan on utilizing the existing structure and then adding a second floor. It's the majority of the site is currently paved, and we're planning on, well, we'll show you the site plan, but we're planning on doing some additional landscaping. But this is driving, well, southbound, but heading up Washington Street. Just the other view, looking back, heading south on Washington. And you can see the Dunkin' Donuts site. This is more of a distant view, but the you know, again, the raised train line in the rear. The existing site, as Peter mentioned, 13,655 square feet. Again, the majority of the site is currently either has building on it or it's paved. This is the site engineer's plan, but our drawing might be a little, it has more dimensions than ours, but ours is a little easier to read. So I'll show that. Maybe I'll just bring that up a little bit. So there are currently, the whole site is a curb cut right now. And our plan is to organize that into 2 curb cuts. We have landscaped area with some bike racks in the front of the existing building, 9 spaces to the right and 9 spaces to the left, with a dumpster in the back corner. And the rest of the site, we would be adding trees, and you know, it's not designed by a landscape architect at this point, but we will definitely have that for a future meeting. So this drawing shows the overall site development. With I'm going to jump into the elevations next, and then we'll show the floor plans quickly. So the design of this building is, and we did a pre-development meeting with different department heads several weeks ago, and the way that we described this is something that would be different than Islington Village. This is outside of the village, where, you know, the hope is that this back end of Islington starts to get developed. And the thought was to just have a different feel, still having gables on the roof line, but less of a less traditional, maybe a slightly more contemporary feel with windows that are, instead of double hungs, they would be casement type of windows. The siding is a mixture of wide cement board siding on the first floor, and then vertical siding above, more of a white and black feel to it with this decorative curved arched entry. Again, it's something that would be different than the village feel that we had up the street that we designed. This is the front view. The two sides are almost identical. The left side and the right one has an exit door, but again, we're taking advantage of the footprint that's there, and there's a little bump out in the back. That's what you see on the left elevation. There's a little bump out, and then you'll see it on the right as well. But again, just carrying that through. There's no development in the attic. We would have trusses, but we are showing a gable and windows just for scale, but there's no development space in there. There's no headroom for, there would all be trusses. This is the rear elevation. One comment that was made is the noise from the T. I think it was Joe Doyle had mentioned it, just from experience. And so we would be super insulating this building, spray foam, and also triple insulated windows would be part of the specification. It's something that Joe brought up, and it's a good point as the train, at least it's not an idling location, it's more of a high-speed location here. And the floor plan, we just book matched the tenant, but we did design this for Attorney David's office, and so the right side would be his office. So there would be a vestibule, and then an entrance for an office on one side and an office on the other side. But they're shown as identical, but this does meet Stephen's program. So we just duplicated it on the other side. The two stairs entering the residence, the little small lobby on the left side, just from mailboxes and packages on the left side. And as Peter mentioned, it's 5 studios. So we have two exit stairs. This would be a sprinklered building. It's currently not sprinklered, so we would be adding sprinkler system to this. And the units are in the 5. Each one of them is a little bit different, but 504, 562, up to 553 square feet. We've had quite a bit of success with this size unit for these smaller units. Both Norwood, we've done quite a bit in Boston. We've done quite a few of these buildings with smaller units. So that Stephen's goal is to make this more affordable, and the studios work well for that. The next 2 drawings are just not really important drawings, just more of the attic, what's that attic space, and then a roof plan, but not so important. So that Peter mentioned 18 spaces, and that meets the requirement. There'd be 1 handicap space, and then the proposed FAR is 0.72, which is under the requirement of 1.0, or the maximum of 1.0. That's it, just a quick overview. And I'll just answer any questions. I can stop sharing if you'd like, and then come back to the drawings. I'll leave it open.
Thank you. I don't know if board members have specific questions about the drawings that Mr. McKay shared that you wanted to ask him to better explain or go in more depth about anything. Does any board members with questions for the applicant at this time? I'll ask a couple. Is there current stormwater system in place?
There is not, and that would be part of the project as well. We would be introducing stormwater. So right now there's nothing, and we would be introducing a stormwater management system to the site, which again would be a big improvement on the 100% paved site.
Mike, if I could just interrupt, this is Peter Zacher. There actually is some stormwater management on the site. We're going to take a look at, there's 2 drains on either side. We're going to be taking a look to see if it needs to be upgraded. And so, but there is, I don't want to leave anybody with the understanding there's nothing there now. There are 2 storm drains on the property.
Okay. Nora, do we know if the town has any information on that? What's existing?
This property has been vacant for over 20 years. I believe it's been that long. It's been at least 15 years that it's been vacant, and there's been no upgrade to the property. So whatever stormwater management system is there, it's old enough that it doesn't meet standards.
Okay.
I guess that's why I answered so quickly. Sorry. What's there is not going to meet the requirements.
Okay. Is that the actual property line in what I'm looking at behind?
It actually goes a little bit further. I can go back to the, this is the engineered site plan, but yeah, it is. It does square off at the bottom. I'm sorry. I thought it went a little bit further, but yes.
Okay. Nora, in the FMUOD, remind me the setbacks.
You're on mute, Nora.
Here we can see the setbacks here. Many of them are at the board's discretion. So the required setback for the front, side, and rear is 0. There's a minimum lot size of 4,000 square feet. There's a minimum project size of 1 acre for consideration under FMUOD. So the board may remember you've only had, I believe, 3 FMUOD applications to date. The first was the new fire station at Islington Center. The second was 301 to 321 Washington Street, which is where Islington Pizza is, and a mixed-use building next to that. And then there was the more recent Islington Center redevelopment project, which involved 2 other corners on Washington Street. So in one of those projects, the area fell short of the 1 acre minimum size requirement, and the board granted a waiver. It only fell a little bit short. It fell about 5% short, and the board granted a waiver to allow that project to go forward. This project, it's a single lot, and that lot is, I believe, 0.32 acres. So in order to consider this under FMUOD, the board would have to grant a waiver of the 1 acre minimum project site by about 68%. I will say one thing that's a little bit different about this property than any others within this FMUOD district is that it's on the town line, and it's bordered by Washington Street, the Norwood town line, and railroad tracks. On the other side is a commercial property that's a going concern, Dunkin' Donuts, and there is no intention by the owner of Dunkin' Donuts to consider joining forces with this property owner and developing a coordinated site. That's what would be necessary in order to achieve a project size of greater than 1 acre. So it is kind of an island, which is why this request is being made that you consider the waiver. The FMUOD bylaw was established with minimum project sizes to intentionally encourage property owners to work together and to assemble small lots into larger projects. That doesn't seem to be a possibility with this site.
It also doesn't seem to be happening, right? I mean, we turned this into an FMUOD 6 years ago,
Yes.
7 years, something like that.
I think it's more than that. I think it was 2014 that it was the FMUOD was expanded to this
So
area.
8 years ago. And to date, I've not heard of any property owners looking to combine lots, sale of their lots to make
No,
a comprehensive plan.
And in fact, several of the properties have been offered for lease over the last 8 years repeatedly. The ones north of Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts has remained as is, but there have been 3 properties north of that have been offered for lease, not for sale. And none of those property owners have worked together to combine their lots.
So combining the lots doesn't appear to be something we could hope for moving forward. I guess that's all we can do is hope. But it doesn't seem to be
I'm
happening.
still hopeful with other
Yeah.
properties, but this one being at the end of the line up against the Norwood town line, I don't think there's any possibility of combination with any other properties.
So redevelopment of this particular lot can only happen with a waiver.
Redevelopment under FMUOD. yes.
FMUOD, right.
Redevelopment for mixed use can only happen if the board is willing to grant a waiver.
And what's the underlying zoning?
This is in the local business B district. So it allows general, commercial, and retail and service establishments. And it doesn't,
is there a minimum lot size for that?
it's just the lot size, which is 4,000 square feet. So that's the same minimum for this development for the minimum lot size. It's that the FMUOD has a minimum project size. So lots can be as small as 4,000 square feet, but the project as an overall review is expected to be a full acre, which would be 10 times the minimum lot size. So it's a significant ask to get a minimum 1 acre project.
Okay. Mr. McKay, I saw it earlier. Can you explain to us the height of this particular building?
It is, I actually forget, 29 feet. 29 feet from the entrance grade to the top of the ridge.
And this is it's a gable roof?
It is a gable roof with two dormers, but there's actually going to be a well cut out in the middle, this where my hand is, for condensers, similar to what
that was going to ask you where the mechanical's going.
They would be right where my hand is.
So they'd be hidden from the street view.
Completely hidden, yes.
And Nora, are we aware of neighboring building heights, just as a comparison?
Let me see.
Or is that a question? Maybe we can get an answer for later.
You have it? Yeah, I was just going to say Dunkin' Donuts is significantly taller. And then the buildings as you go down the line are a little bit less than that. Taller than this is the former K&G printing, I think it was, or K&S printing. Dunkin' Donuts is a 2-story building, so that is significantly taller. But then as you go down the street, the other buildings are 1 story.
So at 2.5 stories at 29 feet, it's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 feet taller than the Dunkin' building.
I think it would be about
less than that.
I think it would be less than that. I think Dunkin's is probably in the 22-foot range. I think the height would be comparable to what's across the street on Washington.
Okay.
It's a raised grade too.
And less than the 35-foot maximum that's allowed in the district.
Right. Thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, this is Peter.
Yes, sir.
So, and I did this, I don't want to read my memo, but in the memo, if you take a look, I did put a chart in there, which I think may answer some of the questions you're asking, where I actually showed what was required in the local business B as well for informational purposes. And I think as Nora had indicated, other than for the project area, I believe that for both, like the height requirement in the local business B as well as in the FMUOD is both 36 feet in both of those. And in terms of the setbacks, if I could just talk about the setbacks in terms of the minimum front yard, there is not. I don't believe there is one in the LBB district. We're 14.7 feet back. And the minimum side yard is, I think, 15 feet in that district, and we're on one side 40, and I think the other well over 100. So the only, the only setback that, even if you just for comparison's sake look at the underlying district, is the rear yard setback, which I believe is an existing condition of about 1.1 feet. So we threw in there just so you can, if you have a chance, you can take a look at that where we showed just to compare the whole thing. And I just want to add, yes, so the waiver we need for this project to go forward, and as we've all been stating, this building hasn't been redeveloped, nor is there an opportunity to join with the abutter to do that. And I would tend to not believe that the current owner just simply sat on the property for 20 years. He's always had a for lease sign there, and for whatever reason, it has not been able to be leased under the current zoning in terms of the existing building. And then I just would add that we are, as I mentioned, going to have all of these units as affordable. And under your bylaw, this project would not trigger affordable, I don't believe, because it has under 8 units. And we think that would be an additional bonus or additional benefit if this project could go forward. So again, the only waiver that we believe we need is of that is the project area. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I see we have board members with their hands raised. Ellen.
Hi, I actually have a few questions and a couple of comments. One, I would love to see this property redeveloped. It's been empty and really sad looking for quite some time. So I'm happy to see something coming forward. What are my questions? First question, one, I love that you're looking to offer all of the units as affordables. Would they be, you're looking at rentals, yes, not to sell them as condos or anything?
Yes, these would be rentals.
Okay. I like the idea of studios. I'm curious, like, have you seen a lot of, and I get that you could keep the cost down on all sides with studios better than if they were, individually full 1 bedrooms, whatever. But have you seen a lot of demand for studios in Westwood? I don't know that we really have any. So it is kind of interesting that it would be a new offering.
I'm gonna, if I could, this is Peters, I'm gonna have Mr. David just respond to that. He's looked at that market.
We can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
Right.
So I have looked at it. There aren't hardly any studios in Westwood. The idea for studios came from me being in real estate and looking at other cities and what they're doing. And Manhattan, for instance, these type of units are extremely popular, and they can do whole buildings of these units. With the redevelopment of Islington, which is beautified that whole area, and the eyesore of this building is what in the studios, this all kind of came together in my mind. I didn't want to overdo the project. I wanted to meet all the requirements that I could, but Islington's becoming like a little walk around village, and studio apartments could be for any number of different people, younger people, just getting out of college, people who sell their bit larger homes in Westwood want to stay in the area, maybe part-time or full-time. So I do see the demand for it. I'm not really concerned about renting them. I am going to keep the building. My intention is to move my firm there. So again, I live in town, and I'm trying to make it a better place.
Thank you. No, that is helpful, because I know that studios really are in demand and play well in large cities, but we're still a relatively small town. So that was but if you're in real estate and you've done the market research, that's helpful. My next question, you touched on it, you're planning to move your office. And this kind of ties into another question I had about the parking. I think I would be okay with the 18 parking spaces if we're not looking at like a food use or something like that. And it sounds like you're really not looking to put in a boutique or a restaurant in this property. Is that a fair statement?
Well, that's an accurate statement. Nora and I did have this conversation before I even, went to Mike and Peter. I met with Nora, and I have no intention of, first of all, I think it would really complicate the site. So I have no intention of doing that, nor do I think it would be attractive to the town or the board. I think we have enough of those uses now in Islington, and I'm just looking to have that first floor professional. Possibly, I have some dentists that are talking to me, something like that. Nothing, no restaurants, no type of food use at all.
Not something that would necessarily generate a greater demand for parking. So that's helpful.
That's absolutely correct.
Excellent. And then my last note is just a comment that I really like the concept plans, but the one thing that Mr. McKay noted that I'm of two minds about is that it really does depart from the village feel look. And half of me thinks that's really excellent. And the other half of me thinks it would be nice to keep it more cohesive with the village feel look. So just food for thought, because I'm thinking also when we go, if this project moves forward and we go into public hearings, I think that's something that the neighbors will have opinions on either way. But yeah, like,
This building could easily be transformed into larger front gables to match what has already been done. So, I mean, if it's a design issue, Mike tried and I liked what he's done, but again, if that becomes an issue, that's something we'll definitely look at.
excellent. So you're not, I mean, I do like the design, and like I said, I'm of two minds. Part of me likes that it would be different. Part of me thinks it might be nice to have it more cohesive, but it sounds like you're willing, if this moves forward and those kind of things come up with the neighbors and the residents, you're willing to have those conversations and pivot if that's kind of what turns out to be the right thing to do with the aesthetics.
Of course.
Excellent. Thank you. That's all very helpful.
All right, next hand I saw raised was from Kate. You're muted, Kate.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Very much like Ellen said, would be very excited to see this lot developed. And I love the idea of affordables. I was very surprised by my own reaction to studios. I do not like 5 studios. I just don't like it. It feels so squished unnecessarily when it looks like there's so much space. And to me, 5 individual residents feels like it creates more traffic than fewer. I don't know that the math actually works for that. That's just how I feel. I'm not saying that's, I haven't done any research. So I'm just curious about what your options are with this space to give people a bedroom. How does that change?
So the bedroom and the affordability kind of go together, so, I mean, the reason that you're going to see a lot more of this type of building being developed, not only in the suburbs, but also in the cities, is because, it's smaller space. It's less expensive to build it out. And as a result of that, it becomes more affordable. It's really a concept thing. I mean, I'm not suggesting that everyone is going to be drawn to studio living, but I have 5 units up there to rent. I know there's a demand for it. I know that the affordability aspect to it is attractive, and what I'm suggesting is that this is a trend type thing that you're going to see a lot more of. I mean, if you looked in the Build Back Better plan that the government was putting forward, there was a lot of affordable housing construction designed like this that was going to sprout out in cities as well as suburbs, because people, housing is getting very expensive and there has to be some alternatives. So, and that's where the idea came from. I can understand how people aren't used to seeing that type of dwelling unit, but my suggestion is you're going to be seeing a lot more of it. And it kind of goes together with a walking village type feel, People aren't going to just stay in their studio. They're going to come out, they're going to walk up and frequent all the different restaurants, food establishments, and other things that have come to the village, the business.
I appreciate that. I've lived in a studio. I see many benefits. It is not something I would like to see in Westwood. That's just me. I am curious, Nora, if Lou Rizzoli has shared his thoughts on this.
So this is a pre-application discussion, so no application has been filed, and so no one, you're seeing it for the first time. This is just.
I mean, I love it, but I'm shocked by it at the same time. It's a weird thing. I'm sorry. It's a weird thing.
Okay. Any other questions, Kate, or comments?
No, I'm going to put my hand down. Thank you.
Okay. Josh.
Hey, I have to echo excitement about, potential of having some more affordable housing in the area as well as the walkability. I do have some concerns with like the historical usage of the site. Are we going to be excavating this whole site and, brand new building? My guess is that this is a brownfield site given, previous occupants, and the proximity to Purgatory Brook right there also gets a little bit more complicated. So have you guys sort of thought through those sort of complexities as well?
So our plan is to build on the existing structure.
Okay.
So our intention is not to disturb the site at all if we can avoid it. So, and I don't believe that I've asked the owner, and I don't believe there's any environmental issues.
Great. Yeah. And me being, I guess, a bleeding heart liberal a little bit, any openness to potentially a e-vehicle charging station for any of the visitors or occupants?
I'd be open to that. That's an easy adjustment for me.
Cool. Awesome.
Is that it, Josh?
That's it.
Okay. Any other board members with any questions, comments for the applicant?
Just me for a
Yes,
question.
Bill. Yeah.
Just I guess a couple of them are answered. I actually was hopeful that you could knit it into the Islington style, because that to me helps bring it a little bit less of an island kind of concept where it's kind of at the end, and if you have affordable housing, it gives more ability to make it walkable if you kind of style it so it has more connection to what is the Islington. I think it's a great idea. One of the things I was thinking, just in terms of the parking, a little concerned about that. Are you anticipate, because obviously parking is going to be a function if you have 5 studios, but then the professional environment, which is the 18 spaces what going to be sufficient, or how are we going to manage the parking issues? Because that to me strikes me as one of the concerns that could happen here.
So I mean, obviously this is walking distance to the train,
Right,
in Islington. The expectation is that the affordability nature of these dwelling units are going to attract people who may or may not have vehicles. My use, I mean, there's 4 employees in my firm. We do meet the requirement of the parking, and again, I haven't anticipated a problem, but I mean, that's an issue. The reason I didn't go to 3 floors, which I could have because I have a 36-foot height requirement, is because I didn't want parking to be an issue. I wanted to keep it at two floors and meet the requirement. And, that's what I did.
okay. So you have the setback. I saw the setback is 1.1 feet to the back, but you meet, and you would be grandfathered in on the back. Is that correct? I was just looking at your chart.
Correct.
The rear yard setback.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
But it would also be in the FMUOD, there is actually no minimum rear yard. So it's basically to be determined by the planning board. So you start with 0, and that corner we would be asking for the 1.1 because it's already existing.
Okay, the 1.1 is on the corner of the structure, which is to the railroad property, correct? Right there.
Right.
That's what I said.
Yes.
Yeah, I have less concern about the affordable. I like the idea of studios. I think that if you can create a walkability, more walkability in the area, that would be great. So I'm eager to see this project go forward. Just also a little concerned about the traffic, because that area around there can really get traffic issues. But I have no other questions. I'm very interested to see this go forward.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Ellen, I think you had your hand up again, right?
Yeah, sorry, Phil's question actually sparked another question in my head. And this, I guess, would be from Mr. David, since you said you're planning on keeping the building, which is great. And to my knowledge, there's nothing in mass law that would prevent landlord from imposing a reasonable restriction on number of vehicles. So, and I know we're starting to go down a rabbit hole, but I'm just curious if I'm correct about that. And if the law does not prohibit that, would you entertain maybe limiting the studios to 1 car per unit? If you can. I mean, in theory, I don't know how many people, like couples, move into studios, but.
I mean, I'm gonna, to be truthful, you can do that. I mean, I've been.
Lost you.
I think
Can't
you're
hear
muted.
you.
Oh, sorry.
No.
No, I said you can limit the amount of cars to a unit. And with a studio, I would limit it to 1. I'm hoping that, you know, most people won't have cars, only because it kind of goes with the studio living in a village. And that, you know, that's what you know, I'm deeply entwined in the town. I wanted to see the town develop. I'd like to see something with Happington in Islington to happen in our downtown area. So I'm kind of excited about this project to maybe serve as a stimulus to other landowners to start, you know, beautifying our downtown areas.
No, I appreciate that. And that's, it's helpful to know that you'd be open, because I know this, whenever any kind of residential comes up, parking is always a concern. And, you know, it came up in some of our conversations about the MBTA zoning. And, you know, I continue to say, just because we want to encourage people to live near mass transit doesn't mean that they won't bring cars. And so unless we have some ideas about our landlords willing to exercise the right to impose reasonable vehicle restriction, you know, it's helpful to me as a board member to know when we're talking about a project that would bring more residents, which again, I think this is an excellent proposal, just to know that you are willing to look at, particularly with the studio. I don't think it's unreasonable to say 1 vehicle per unit. So that's helpful. Thank you.
So the MBTA zoning is going to create this type of housing. That's what the whole impetus behind that legislation was. So they're going to have this, so people have less cars. The units will be smaller, but they'll be strategically placed next to, you know, mass transit. So this is part of where this idea came from, and I would be willing to do something like that, so parking doesn't become an issue once the building's completed.
I echo Ellen. I completely agree with that sentiment.
In looking at this, I don't know how many visitors your business requires, Mr. David, but I would say there's just as likely to have tenants in the studios to have no cars as to have 2 cars. So I believe history it shows me that I think the parking will be ample at 5 for the studios. And then Mr. David indicated he uses 4 and maybe a couple for visitors. And the square footage of the other side of the building lends itself to a similar usage, unless it's a retail establishment with a lot of traffic count. Then I think they would probably have ample parking for their use as well. At 5 for the units, 5 or 6 for the business, and then another 5 or 6 for the business on the left side. It seems to me that it would serve it well. I was actually amazed that there were 18 spots able to be fit in this spot, in this location. I've driven past this unit multiple times in the 26 years I've lived in Westwood, and I was amazed to see the count got as high as 18.
Even under your zoning bylaw, for the professional services, which we assume is what's going to be on the first floor, your bylaw rounded up required 10 spaces for all the commercial use, which again, assuming we don't lose any spaces during the review, leaves 8 parking spaces available for 5 residential apartments, which is studio apartments. which if my math is correct, is like 1.6 parking spaces per studio, which I believe, at least from a, if you look at the ITE stuff, would be a little bit on the high side for studios. And in theory, there is that whole aspect of that this is a mixed use building, which I think is why I think you'll find that it turns out to be higher. But clearly, Stephen wants to have this so it works for everybody that's going to be in that building. And if that means, taking a look at, how many cars each studio renter would have, and that's something clearly he's willing to do.
And would your intention be to each unit gets a reserved spot so that they don't have to fight for spots when they return home from work in the evening? Or
So, I mean, if you think about it.
Can't hear you, sir. Sorry.
My office closes at 5. So at 5, 6 more spaces open up. And
yeah, and they
people
can be
come
for
home from
guests,
work.
for people. Yeah, I'm thinking they could be the guests, the evening guests of the people who live there. But I
Correct.
think it would be helpful to have at least 5 spots, one for each unit, identified as a reserved spot.
Oh no, I didn't understand it. Yes, I agree with you. I agree
So
with that.
I'm giving priority or some dedication to the spots, the parking spots.
I mean, if you look at the buildings, we could dedicate those spots close to where the entrance to the residential units are. I understand that.
Can you explain on this top view that we're seeing, there's a white rectangle off the back with a door swing into it. No, not the dumpster, the other. Yeah, what is
that's
that?
just an existing bump out in the rear that Mike got creative and put a little deck on top. And if my wife ever gets mad at me, that's where I'll probably live,
It's an existing mechanical space.
Okay. So we're solving many problems in the planning board tonight. Okay. And I do note that you've identified locations here for bike storage, which I think is helpful given this particular area. Any other comments or thoughts by planning board members? This is a pre-application hearing, not a hearing, a pre-application meeting.
What's the distance to the set of lights? Just because again, I'm thinking in terms of traffic. If you have traffic, especially in the morning, can be really, really busy around there. Any sense, Peter or anyone?
I'm not
I'll
sure.
defer to Mike on that.
Yeah, I
Maybe
can,
Mike.
I can. I'll open up a plan. If you can give me a second, I'll try to get a good guesstimate on it. It'll take a minute, so.
Yeah, no, I hate to have people backing up all at the intersection, and it's
I think
not.
a Google Street View or a Google image map would probably
Right.
be the most.
Yeah.
150.
It's about 300 feet, approximately 300 feet.
300 feet?
To the entrance to the parking, the double loaded parking is approximately 300 feet from there to the light.
Okay.
I got a bit longer, but yeah, it's over
300 feet? Wow.
It's
Okay.
450 actually on the GIS map.
Okay.
Oh, 450, that's interesting.
I would
Yeah.
still say that we end up having to take a right-hand turn out of this to watch out for traffic because people are going to
Yeah.
drive left.
I think there's an island. You're forced to go right, aren't you there?
The island's further up, but it's,
Further
I think
Is it?
it would be
Yeah.
a right-hand turn.
Well, that was
Okay.
my concern. You don't want to be having traffic coming in, taking lefts, going towards the clapboard tree, Everett Street, because then you're gonna get a nightmare around that situation.
This would definitely be a right-hand only.
Yeah.
situation.
I think that's definitely something we have to look at closer.
Yep.
All right, any other comments, questions from board members for the applicant? Okay. Any other thoughts from the applicant or your team that you just remembered you'd like to share?
No, only that. Thank you for your time this evening.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I don't see, it's not a hearing, so I'm not going to go to public comments. And actually, we don't have anyone as an attendee to raise their hand. So just between us at this point in the discussion. So, okay.
Great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
John, moving forward, you'll have discussion with the applicant about when it would be appropriate and next steps.
Yep, I certainly will.
Okay, what's next?
Review of meeting minutes, if the board would like me to pull up the minutes to look at.
Has the board had an opportunity to review the minutes that were submitted? What was the date for that?
June 7th.
June 7th.
Okay. If everyone, unless someone has an objection, are there any changes or amendments recommended for the meeting minutes as submitted? I don't hear any recommendations for changes.
I
or
think,
additions.
Chris, I had gotten an email from Kate just asking me to verify with the letterhead to make sure all the planning board members that are listed on the letterhead are up to date. So,
oh, I didn't
I'll
know
take a look at that and make sure those are correct.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
You know,
board members?
I just have one thing, Chris. I think I sent something to John, and I don't know if maybe he corrected it. But when we did the review of minutes from last month, I think I cut and pasted and had the wrong date. I think I had the April date instead of the May date for the approval of minutes at the end. I can't pull it up. Taking my notes.
Okay, let me, I've got them open, so let me scroll down. Where's that, Jessica?
Right at the end when we reviewed the minutes last month. Or I guess it was June.
Early June for the mid-May meeting?
Correct. I think I put the date was we reviewed the April minutes, but it was really the May minutes. Unless
So we approved correctly the May minutes.
No. Yes. The minutes that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, it does say May 17th.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
Yeah, so that's correct.
Okay, but the meeting minutes we're talking about now is for
June 7th, correct.
7th. Okay. Is that, I presume that to be correct when I read through them, but admittedly, I didn't really scrutinize over the date.
Jessica, just for clarification, it says review of draft meeting minutes from May 17th, but then underneath it says via roll call vote to approve the meeting minutes from April 25th.
That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, okay. That's the one thing that I think is the mistake.
Yes, that's what I need to adjust.
Okay.
But that was on minutes that we approved
on June 7th.
2 weeks ago, right?
Right. So the April reference needs to be a May reference.
Right.
But procedurally, you're talking about the June 7th minutes right now. Why don't you
right now, right?
Resolve those and then go back and you can correct that. The other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good point. Okay. If board members are ready to vote, or if one person is ready to make a motion to adopt the minutes
as corrected with that correction.
Oh, with the individuals, the names at the top.
And with the change, so it might be helpful, John, if you put the minutes up on the screen for people to see. So the minutes of June 7th contain a portion of a meeting at the end of the June 7th meeting where you approve the minutes of May 17th. And
that's where it erroneously says April.
Right. There's just an error describing
right
the approval of those minutes.
Okay.
So strike the words April 25th and replace them with May 17th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so motion to accept the minutes with these edits.
Second.
Any further discussion on meeting minutes for June 7th meeting? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Phil.
Aye.
Josh.
Aye.
Ellen.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
I vote aye. Okay, now, do we have to make any other changes? Or was that the only change we had to make? This is what was the mistake that we just corrected, right?
That's correct.
Okay, we don't have to make any changes to May 15th meeting.
No.
Minutes, okay. Before we moved on, want to make sure we were done with that. Okay, John, anything else?
No, that's it. On to updates from agency and committee representatives.
Okay, I got a email, I think today, indicating that my I was approved by the Board of Select Board, I should say, for housing partnership. Did anyone else get similar emails recently? No? Okay, well, when you do, assuming you will, you need to get sworn in at Town Hall, I believe. Or Nora, the all at Town Hall that everyone will have to be?
Yes, you go to the town clerk's office on the first floor of Town Hall, sign the registry, and you'll be sworn in. I believe the select board appointed all the representatives that the planning board recommended, with the exception of pedestrian and bicycle safety committee. They're holding off on those appointments until they have a sufficient number of members to restart that committee.
Okay. Any other committee comments, things you'd like to report back to the board?
Chris, I want to make you aware of the situation with remote meetings.
That's what I was
going
going
to
to
ask you about that. Thank you.
I was going to ask Pat that myself.
So there's legislation pending right now, but it doesn't appear that it's going to get through by July 15th. So there may be a period between July 15th until it passes where we're going to have in-person meetings. But we're hopeful that they push it through the legislator, the House and the Senate, and get it to the governor's desk to sign, to continue to be able to meet remotely or hybrid, depending on our level of technology. But right now, it looks like July 15th, we're back to the old way of doing things.
So you're all set for your July 12th meeting? That will be virtual. Your August 9th meeting is touch and go. So if at the July 12th meeting, you need to continue any applications, any hearings, you'll continue them to an in-person meeting at Carvey Street on August 9th, with a provision that if the legislature should update the rules to allow continued remote participation, the meeting will be held remotely and login information will be posted to the website.
And will we have to do any additional advertising if things change sometime in July?
No, we're going to place any ads for that August meeting as in person with that same provision, saying that unless the remote meetings are extended.
So July 12th, we can plan would be Zoom.
Yes.
And August is, as of now, likely to be in person.
Correct.
Got it.
But if it changes, if we have the ability, the August meeting will also be remote.
There is significant effort to try and push the legislation through from various interesting constituent groups, but I'm not hopeful.
Okay.
Okay. If there's nothing else on committee reports, John, is that all that remains?
Yeah, I believe so.
Chris?
Okay. Yeah, who's that?
One thing to bring up, and I'm not sure if we've already gone over this before, but I know the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant through the federal government just opened. So that might be of interest to us moving forward. That application window just opened, I believe, in May.
For Safe Streets?
Yeah, a federal grant associated with that. Kate, you said that you were likely going to do the pedestrian bike committee.
If they get enough membership to start, yes.
Maybe that's something that we can bring towards that. But it's like $1 billion fund, so there definitely might be some money there.
Okay. Nora, to your knowledge, is this no, it's Complete Streets that we have utilized in the past?
We've utilized Complete Streets and Safe Routes to School, but this is a new grant program.
Yeah, and it's a federal grant, you said, Josh, right?
Yep.
And those other two are state.
They are, I believe they might use federal pass.
Yeah, I think it's pass through money.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that, Josh. we'll, I guess, talk more about that as if so you have more to report or someone has more to report on our July 12th meeting. Okay. With that, I guess we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Josh,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Thank you very much, everyone, for your
Thank you,
work. We really
everyone.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Have a good
Have
night.
a healthy and safe 4th.